The crane operator gave me a thumbs up, and dock number 1 came out of my lake like a rotten tooth. 33 more to go. $400,000 in boat slips, sold by my HOA on land they never owned. See, my grandfather bought this ground in 1946, before it was ever a lake. The water rose, the deed didn't. So while board president Patricia screamed at the sheriff, the court order in his hand used one quiet word: trespass. They fed my grandfather's dock into a wood chipper to build their marina. This is the story of how one line in an 80-year-old deed sank an entire HOA. Dock number 12 came out of Kettle Lake at 20 to 10 on a gray October morning. It swung slow under the crane, 30 feet up. Lake water poured off the boards like the lake didn't want to let it go. The signal flag on the boom snapped red in the wind. Diesel smoke drifted down my shoreline. I stood on the gravel with a thermos of black coffee, and I counted. 11 docks stacked in the association parking lot. 23 still in the water. That's when the white Lexus came down Lakeshore Drive doing 50 in a 25. It slid to a stop crooked in the grass. Patricia Caldwell Maine was out the door before it quit rocking. Pearls, navy blazer, hair sprayed stiff enough to stop birdshot. "Stop that crane," she screamed. "Sheriff, you stop that crane right now." Sheriff Ray Delgado stood beside me with his thumbs in his belt. He didn't move. "Morning, Trish," he said. "This is community property," she said. "Those are our slips. This is theft, and per the bylaws." "Ma'am," Ray said. "Don't you ma'am me, Raymond Delgado. 34 families paid $12,000 apiece for those slips. You're standing there drinking coffee and watching a crime." "I'm not drinking the coffee," Ray said. "The coffee's his." Ray reached into his jacket, slow, the way he does everything. He pulled out a folded paper with a blue cover, and he started to open it. But to understand how a line written in 1946 emptied a lake, I need to take you back 11 months. Back to the morning Patricia Caldwell Maine first knocked on my door. My name is Walt Brenner. I'm 63 years old. I did 22 years in the Army as a combat engineer. After that, I fixed haul trucks at the Perry County Quarry until my knees told me to stop. My wife, Ellen, passed 3 years ago this June. In my jacket pocket, I carry a brass boat cleat that belonged to my grandfather. I rub my thumb across it when I'm thinking. That year, I did a lot of thinking. The land came from Grandpa, 14 acres in 1946, bought with his mustering out pay from the war. There wasn't any Kettle Lake back then. There was Kettle Creek and a low hayfield that flooded every spring and smelled like wet clover. Then in 1951, the lumber mill built a dam downstream. The water came up over the low field and stayed. Folks started calling it a lake. Grandpa sold 3 dry acres in the 60s to put my dad through school. That left 11. 14 acres, Walter, he told me once. A man who owns ground never has to beg. Every March I pay taxes on 11 acres. Funny thing is, you can only walk on 8 of them. Grandpa used to laugh about that. He called it the cheapest fishing license in the county. He built the house in 1948 out of mill reject lumber. He built the dock out of cedar he milled himself. 80 feet of it, straight as a rifle barrel. Those boards went silver gray a long time ago, smooth as a gun stock. A boot heel on them makes a hollow knock I've known since I could walk. Ellen planted roses right at the water line. She liked to deadhead flowers and watch the loons in the same hour. 3 years ago, on a flat, calm morning, I walked to the end of that dock. I let her ashes go on the water. The loons called that morning, too. I remember being grateful for it. Across the lake, back in 1994, A developer turned the old Hutchins farm into Kettle Lake Estates. 127 houses, vinyl siding, and a homeowners association. I never joined. Couldn't have if I'd wanted to. My deed is older than their maps. My driveway comes off the county road. For 30 years, they minded their side and I minded mine. Then came last November, a Tuesday. Cold rain ticking on the porch roof. Bacon still popping in the pan, 7:40 in the morning. Somebody knocked 3 times, sharp, like a woodpecker wearing a ring. I opened the door. She had an umbrella in one hand and a clipboard in the other. "Mr. Brenner?" "I don't believe we've been formally introduced. Patricia Caldwell Main, president of the Kettle Lake Estates Homeowners Association." She said it sing-song like a bank commercial. "I know who you are," I said. "Well, isn't that lovely? And may I say, your property is just charming. So rustic." She looked past my shoulder when she said it, down the yard, at the water. "Now. The association is launching our waterfront improvement initiative this spring. There are a few items concerning your dock. My dock's 46 years older than your association," I said. "And it has such history," she said. "We simply want the waterfront to feel intentional." "It's intentional," I said. "My grandfather intended it, and then he built it." Her smile got wider. "Per the bylaws, waterfront structures visible from community property fall under beautification review. We're offering a complimentary compliance assessment. Most owners find it painless." "I'm not an owner in your association," I said. "Not yet," she said. "But fences come down, Mr. Brenner. Communities grow." "Mine's doing fine at its current size," I said. She touched her pearls. "The lake doesn't really see it that way, does it?" I waited a couple of seconds. I always do when something starts crawling up the back of my neck. "No, thank you," I said. "You have a good morning." She clicked her pen. She didn't write anything, and she didn't leave. She stood on my porch holding a clipboard and looking at my dock the way a wrecking crew looks at a wall. The letter came 10 days later, certified mail. Denise has run our mail route in the same Jeep since the 90s. She made me sign a green card for it with rain dripping off her hood. "Somebody loves you, Walt," she said. "Somebody sure does," I said. I opened it at the kitchen table while my coffee went cold. "Notice of violation," it said in bold across the top. Then this. "Non-conforming waterfront structure. The referenced dock fails to meet community standards for materials, color, and design. Remove within 30 days of this notice. Failure to comply will result in fines of $100 per day per the bylaws of the Kettle Lake Estates Homeowners Association." Signed, Patricia Caldwell Main, President. There was a gold foil seal at the bottom, the kind teachers stick on a spelling test. I'll be honest with you. Part of me wanted to drive over there and say some things, but 22 years in the Army taught me something. The man who fires first usually loses the paperwork. So I sat down at Ellen's old Royal typewriter and answered it instead. "Dear Mrs. Caldwell Main, my dock was built in 1948 by Carl Brenner on land he owned. Your association was recorded in 1994. I am not a member of it, and my property is not subject to your bylaws. I will not be removing the dock. Respectfully, Walter Brenner." Then I did something Grandpa taught me, back when a neighbor argued over a fence line. I bought that morning's Perry County Gazette and laid it flat on the dock boards. I photographed the dock from 4 angles with the front page and the date showing. Proof of what stood there and exactly when. I mailed my reply certified, same as hers. Her letter went into a manila folder. That folder got thick before it was over. She wanted my dock gone. I just didn't know yet what she wanted the water for. 2 weeks went by quiet. Then, on a Saturday morning with frost on the grass, I carried my coffee outside and stopped halfway down the yard. Orange survey stakes stood along my shoreline. Not one or two, a whole line of them. Maybe every 40 feet, running all 900 feet of my frontage. Each one had a pink ribbon flapping. The crows were hollering about it from the pines. Up on the county road sat a yellow Ford F-450 with Maine Marine Construction painted on the door. Engine running, nobody in it. Down by the reeds, a young fella in a safety vest was bent over a tripod. "Morning," I said. "You know you're standing on private land?" "I just go where they send me," he said. He wouldn't look at me. "You'd have to talk to the association." "Whose survey is this?" I asked. "Sir, you'd really have to talk to the association." So I did. I wrote the board a 1-page letter. "If the association claims any easement on my shoreline, send me a copy of the recorded document." Simple as that. 9 days later, I got one sentence back on cream-colored letterhead. "Your request is being processed through the appropriate committee." I called the number at the bottom and got the treasurer, Gordon Pruitt. He's a retired bank manager who talks the way a copy machine sounds. "Mr. Pruitt, who paid for the survey crew on my property?" I asked. "That's not the relevant line item," he said. "It's relevant to me." "All expenditures are handled per the reserve schedule," he said. "Is there anything else I can help you with today?" There wasn't. I walked my shoreline and photographed all 61 stakes with the location turned on in my phone. Then I left every stake right where it stood. You don't pull the weeds, you find out who planted them. Wednesday night was the fish fry at the VFW post in Marina. Ray Delgado and I have held down the same corner table for 15 years. The whole hall smells like fried perch and old fryer oil. I told him about the letter and the stakes. "You want my advice?" Ray asked. "That's why I'm buying," I said. "Don't touch the stakes, don't raise your voice. Don't give her one single photograph of you being the problem." He wiped his hand slow. "Whatever this is, it's going to come down to documents. Paper first, Walt, then me." "You figure it comes to you?" I asked. "A woman starts measuring another man's water line without asking," Ray said. "It usually comes to somebody." He looked at me across the baskets. "You sleeping all right, Walt?" "Like a man with a good folder," I said. Friday morning, I climbed into my '98 Ford F-250. I drove the 11 miles into Marion to the county courthouse, 2nd floor, recorder of deeds. That office smells like floor wax and 100 years of old paper. Behind the counter stood Marjorie Finch, glasses on a chain, 30 years in that deed vault, and proud of every one of them. I knew her a little. Her sister got fined $400 by that same association over a flagpole. Marjorie hadn't forgotten it. "Walt Brenner," she said. "You've got the look of a man with a property question. I need the map the Kettle Lake Estates Association filed with the county, their plat, and I'd like to see where it ends. That I can do fast," she said. It took her no time at all. She came back with a big flat book open across both arms. With it came an old typed index card she'd pulled from a drawer nobody had opened in years. She looked that card over, said, "Huh," quiet to herself, and set it to one side. The way a card player sets something down when he's seen what's in his hand. Marjorie slid the HOA's plat across the counter, tapped the shoreline, and said 5 words I'd think about for a year. "Their map stops right here." Winter went by quiet. The orange stakes stayed in my shoreline like a line of bad teeth, and I let them stand. Then, the 2nd week of March, a glossy flyer showed up in my mailbox. I wasn't a member of anything. There it was anyway, between the seed catalog and the power bill. Kettle Lake Marina, it said, over a picture so shiny you could smell the money. 34 premium boat slips. Founding members only. $12,000 secures your legacy on the water. Down in the corner it promised a gated ramp, a fuel dock, and a brass plaque with your family name on your slip. Reserve today. There was fine print at the bottom. I got my glasses out for it. Not one word about who owned the bottom of the lake. There was a drawing of the finished marina, all white railings and flags. I stood at my mailbox in the wind and studied that drawing a long time. The docks in the picture ran along the North Shore. The North Shore is 900 feet of me. Saturday morning I took a stool at Peg's Diner in Marion, where the coffee's thin but the bacon smell fixes everything. Peg topped my cup without asking, same as she's done for 20 years. Curtis Boyd sat down next to me. Curtis did 20 years in the Navy. Keeps a pontoon boat he polishes like a trophy, and he was grinning. "You see the flyer?" Curtis asked. "I put my deposit down Tuesday, slip number 9. $12,000, Curtis. Patricia says they'll be worth 20 in 5 years. Deep water, just down the road from my door. I've been waiting my whole life to walk to my boat." "Where do you figure they're building it?" I asked. "North Shore," he said. "Only spot deep enough. Curtis, that's my frontage." He stirred his coffee and frowned at it. "She told everybody the association's got the waterfront. It was in the flyer, Walt. There's a lawyer's name on the bottom and everything." "Whose lawyer?" I asked. "Hers, I guess," he said. And he laughed, but not all the way. Peg leaned in with the pot. "My cousin put money down too," she said. "Slip 15, should he not have?" "Hang on to the receipt," I said. "That's all I'll say in a diner." The Monday after ice out, at 6 in the morning, I woke up to a sound like a giant dropping phone books. Whump, whump, whump. I walked down through the fog with my coffee. 60 feet off my shore sat a construction barge with a pile driver on it, hammering steel into the bottom of the lake. Dale Main stood on the deck in a brown Carhartt. Big man, orange hat. His yellow Ford F-450 was parked at the community ramp with the trailer still hitched. "Morning," I called out. "You're driving steel off my frontage." Dale looked at me the way you look at weather. "Talk to the association, Chief." "You got a recorded easement?" I asked. "A permit? Anything on paper?" "My wife is the approval," he said. He laughed at his own line. Then he revved the barge winch while I was still talking, so my words went into the noise and nowhere else. I didn't yell. I went up to the house and got my phone. I photographed the barge, the truck, the trailer plate, and every piling. By dark, there were 8 of them sticking out of the water in a straight line. By the end of the week, there were 40. I wrote the date on every photo, every evening, at the kitchen table. It got to be a habit, like brushing my teeth. 60 pilings by tax day. I could have told you the driving order of every one of them. The association's open meeting was the 3rd Thursday of April, 7 in the evening, at the clubhouse. The room smelled like burnt coffee and carpet cleaner. Folding chairs, maybe 80 people. Patricia sat at the head table with a gavel. Gordon sat next to her behind 3 binders. By the door stood a young guy in a polo shirt with Marina Operations Director stitched on the chest. That was Bryce, her son, 27, filming the crowd with his phone like it owed him money. A fella from Birch Court got up first and thanked the board for finally putting Kettle Lake on the map. People clapped. Property values got said maybe 9 times. Open forum came last. Everybody got a turn, short and timed. I gave my name and address and asked one question. Who owns the ground those pilings are driven into? Patricia smiled like a flight attendant. The waterfront is a treasured community amenity, Mr. Brenner. This project has been fully vetted. That's not what I asked. Who owns the ground? Per the bylaws, we don't debate settled matters in open forum, she said. Nothing about it is settled. I object to the project, and I want that in the meeting record. She brought the gavel down twice, light little taps, the way you'd knock on a dollhouse. Your time is up. The waterfront belongs to the community, Mr. Brenner. All of us. A few people clapped. Bryce turned his phone on me and held it there until I sat down. On my way out, a big fella I didn't know bumped my shoulder in the doorway. Nobody's stealing your view, old-timer, he said. It was never about the view, I said. But he was already gone. The next morning, I sent a written request for a certified copy of the meeting record. I got it, and my objection was in there. One line, spelled wrong. Brenner with one N. I filed it in the folder anyway. Paper is paper. They opened sales to the whole association that same week. Curtis told me at the diner there was a waiting list by Wednesday. Folks were putting down deposits on slips that were still open water with a stake in it. By Friday, all 34 slips were sold. $408,000 for the 3 acres of my farm nobody could see. The 1st of May brought lilacs and a certified letter. My so-called account balance. The dock fines had been running $100 a day since December. The total at the bottom of the page said $4,700, printed in red. Under that, one more sentence. Unpaid balances may be secured by a lien against the property. A lien. On the house my grandfather built with his own hands, over a dock he built with the same ones. I didn't pay a nickel. I answered every letter on the Royal, short and polite. I logged each one in a green ledger. Date received, date answered, amount claimed. Ray had said it would come down to documents. I was building a wall out of them. By June, the balance letters came every single week. $7,900, the last one said. The stamp on the envelope cost more than their claim was worth. Then the Marina opened, and summer came in loud. Memorial Day weekend, there were 11 boats rafted together off my shoreline. Music going past midnight. Wakes slapping my bank hard enough to shake the rose bed. Monday morning, I picked 14 beer cans out of my reeds and lined them up on a plank like ducks. The 4th of July was worse. Somebody's cousin shot mortar fireworks off a pontoon until 1 in the morning. The next day, my reeds were full of scorched cardboard tubes, and the whole shoreline smelled like a wet campfire. I bagged it all and dated the bag. I called the association office about the fireworks. A recording thanked me for my interest in community living and hung up on me. The Saturday after that, I smelled it before I saw it. Gasoline, sharp, sitting right on top of the rose smell. A rainbow sheen had drifted in against my bank and parked itself along Ellen's roses. Somebody's tank had overflowed at the fuel dock they'd bolted on, and the wind did the rest. Inside a week, the leaves on the near bushes turned brown and curled like old receipts. I dipped mason jars in the water, screwed the lids down and wrote the date on masking tape. 4 jars on the workbench, lined up by week. I photographed the roses every Sunday. Same angle, same hour. Anybody can say a thing got ruined. I could show it happening. Now, back when the survey stakes first showed up, I'd screwed a trail camera to my dock post, the kind deer hunters use, with the invisible flash. Cheap insurance. In July, it earned its keep. I came down one morning and my boat was gone. 14-foot Lund with the 1968 Johnson motor my grandfather bought new. He taught my dad to troll with that motor. My dad taught me. It starts on the second pull every time, like it's proud of it. The mooring line wasn't untied. It was lying in the water, cut clean. I found the boat that afternoon behind the clubhouse. It sat up on somebody's trailer with a boot chain run through the wheel. An invoice was taped to the windshield in a plastic sleeve. Vessel recovery and storage. $600. Payable to the association. While I stood there, Bryce came around the corner holding his phone up sideways. "Sir, this is a secured facility," he said. "You're being recorded." "That's my boat, son," I said. "It was adrift. Adrift vessels are a navigation hazard. We recovered it per the fee schedule." He kept the phone on me. "Rules are rules, bro." "Who authorized the tow?" I asked. "Marina Operations. That's me. There's an appeal form on the website under Resources." "You towed a boat you've watched me tie up 100 times." "Sir, I'm going to need you to step back from the vessel," he said to his phone, not to me. Ray met me at the diner that evening and turned the invoice around with one finger. "Don't pay it," he said. "Don't sign anything. And Walt, whatever you're holding, keep holding it." "Who says I'm holding anything?" I asked. 20 years of fish fries, Ray said. "They want a picture of an angry old man. Walt, don't be in it." "I'm the calmest man in this county," I said. "That's what worries them," Ray said. I drove home and pulled the card out of the trail camera. There he was. Timestamp 11:42 at night, hood up, phone light in his teeth, sawing my mooring line with a folding knife. 4 photos, clear as a yearbook. He'd even looked straight into the lens once, the way people check a mirror. He never saw the camera. Some folks only ever see themselves. I had him on camera. I put the card in a drawer, because by then I knew the knife wasn't the worst thing coming. At the July meeting, I stood up in open forum with the invoice in my hand. I asked how a boat tied to a private dock becomes adrift. The room was hot, and the ceiling fans just pushed the hot around. "Mr. Brenner," Patricia said, "the association can't speak to the condition of your knots." That got a laugh. A good third of the room, laughing, and Bryce by the door laughing loudest with the phone up. "Somebody cut my line," I said. "That's a serious accusation," Patricia said. "Do you have any proof, Mr. Brenner?" I did. It was sitting in a drawer at home. "We'll see," I said. "The recovery fee is per the adopted fee schedule," Gordon said, without looking up from his binder. An older lady near the window stood halfway up. "That doesn't seem right," she said, towing a man's boat off his own dock. "Thank you for your passion, Doris," Patricia said, moving to new business. "The lake belongs to everyone, Mr. Brenner," Patricia said. "Maybe it's time you accepted that." I stood there a couple of seconds with the invoice in my hand. Curtis Boyd sat 2 seats back from the front, and I noticed he wasn't laughing. "Well," I said, "that's one way to do it." I drove home from that meeting with their laughter still in my ears. 6 days later, I woke up to chainsaws. They came at 6:10 on a Thursday morning, the last week of July. I woke up to chainsaws, 2 of them, trading off like dogs barking. My first thought was a road crew. My second thought had me moving. From the kitchen window, I could see men on my bank in the half-light. By the time I got my boots on and came out the door, it was already happening. They'd dropped the first 20 feet of my grandfather's dock into the shallows. There were 5 men in orange vests. Dale's yellow F-450 sat in the community lot across the line. Behind it idled a rented wood chipper, a big orange thing with the rental tag still zip-tied to the hitch. 2 men cut the cedar into 4-foot sections. 2 more fed the sections into the chipper. It screamed every time it ate one. It blew what used to be my grandfather's dock out the chute in a gray cloud. The morning smelled like two-cycle exhaust and fresh-cut cedar, both at once. The wind carried the dust straight across Ellen's rose bed. There was a stake driven at the top of my bank with a laminated page taped to it. Emergency Resolution 24-11. Hazard Abatement of Derelict Waterfront Structure. Adopted in executive session. Dated the night before at 20 to 10 in the evening. Signed, Patricia Caldwell, Maine. A closed meeting at night to call an 80-year-old dock a hazard. They hadn't even spelled derelict right. 80 years. That dock stood through ice heaves and floods and 3 hailstorms. The only hazard it ever faced showed up wearing pearls. I called Ray's cell while I walked down. He answered on the second ring. "They're chipping my dock, Ray, right now. 5-man crew." "Are you filming?" he asked, "since the porch?" "Keep filming. Keep your hands in your pockets. I'm 2 towns over on a transport, but I'm sending who's on duty. Walt, hands in pockets, say it back." "Hands in pockets," I said. "One more thing," Ray said. "Is anybody in danger? Anybody threatening you?" "No, they won't even look at me." "Then it's property, Walt. Property we can fix. Don't hand them anything worse." I walked up to the foreman, a heavy-set man with earmuffs around his neck. "Whose order is this?" I asked. "Association's, sir. We got the resolution and a letter from their attorney." He held up a folder without letting go of it. "I was told the structure's abandoned. It's mine. It's on my land. You're destroying private property." "Sir, I'd be careful around that chipper." "You know this is going to court," I said. "Sir, I hang doors and cut wood. Courts for the people who sign my checks." I stayed back from the chipper. I filmed everything, wide and steady, and I kept my hands where Ray told me to keep them. A deputy rolled up at 20 to 7, a young one named Kowalski, with his diesel clattering. Dale walked over to meet him, carrying the folder like a hall pass. "Deputy, this man's crew is cutting up my dock," I said. "He's got a board resolution and an attorney letter," Kowalski said. He studied the papers a long time. He was maybe 26. "Sir, if both sides are claiming authority, this is a civil matter," he said. "I can't rule on who owns what from the hood of my car." "Then watch," I said. "Watch and remember." "For what it's worth," Kowalski said, quieter, "my dad had a dock like that on Spruce Lake. I hope your paperwork's good, sir." "Son," I said, "it's about to get a lot better." He stayed. Give him that. He stood by his cruiser and wrote things down while the saws worked. Patricia arrived at 7. She parked the white Lexus and came down to the seawall on their side with a steel travel mug. She didn't come near me. She raised the mug like we were neighbors at a parade. "It was properly noticed, Mr. Brenner," she called across the water. "Everything by the book." "Which book is that?" I called back. She didn't answer. Then she waved. A small wave, fingers only. Bryce showed up around then, too. He filmed the chipper from 3 angles, right up on the chute, like it was a music video. He never once pointed the phone at the resolution stake. By 7:30 it was done. 80 feet of cedar my grandfather milled with his own hands. Boards I'd walked barefoot for 60 years. The boards Ellen's ashes drifted past. All of it was a pale scatter of chips floating on brown water. 8 cut-off piling stubs. A coat of gray dust on the roses that were already half dead from the gasoline. Ellen used to say those roses were the only thing she ever grew that listened to her. I stood there and I made her a promise I don't need to repeat here. The crew loaded up. The chipper went quiet. The lake got so still I could hear a loon way out past the pilings. Cedar dust sat on the water in a long, pale streak, pointing at their marina like a finger. I stood on the bank a while. I'm not going to tell you what I felt because you already know. and because feelings weren't going to move one splinter of that dock. Here's what I did instead. I went down to the rose bed and picked a handful of cedar chips out of the dirt. I put them in my jacket pocket next to the brass cleat. 2 pieces of my grandfather in one pocket. Then I went inside. I poured the cold coffee down the drain. I washed the pan from the night before and set it in the rack, because a man thinks better with his hands busy, and I sat down by the phone with a number already in my head. Not the number folks would guess. I didn't call a lawyer that morning. I called the county recorder's office and asked Marjorie one question. How far back does my deed go? Get down here before lunch, Marjorie said, and I'll show you myself. The vault behind the recorder's counter smells like dust and old leather bindings. 140 years of Perry County stands in there on steel shelves, floor to ceiling. Marjorie had 2 books already pulled and laid open on the table. Next to them sat that old typed index card she'd set aside back in December. I remembered this card the day you came in about their plat, she said. It's been itching at me since. Look here, book 61, page 340, warranty deed October 1946, Carl Brenner. She ran her finger under the lines. 14 acres, described by meets and bounds. Surveyor's calls, iron pins at the corners. The creek named as Kettle Creek. Walt, when your grandpa bought this ground, there was no lake on it. The lake came in 51, I said. The mill dam. Right, so how does a lake sit on a man's land without buying it? She turned the second book around to face me. Book 68, page 12. Flowage easement, June 1951. The mill paid your grandfather $300, and this part is word for word, the right to overflow and flow water over said lands. She tapped the page twice. Over, Walt, that's the whole trick. An easement borrows, it doesn't buy. The mill bought permission to park water on the low field. Nobody ever bought the field. I stood there with my thumb on the brass cleat. Say it plain, Marjorie. You don't own to the lake, she said. You own under it. 3 acres of that lake bottom is your farm with water on top. It always has been. Every March, 11 acres on the tax bill. You can only walk on 8. The county had never forgotten the other 3, and neither had the deed. Grandpa's joke about the fishing license had been the plain truth, sitting in the open for 80 years. Marjorie, I said, there are 34 boat slips out there. Then somebody's built a subdivision in your hayfield, she said, and they're about to have a very bad autumn. I didn't celebrate. In the Army, we had a saying, a position isn't yours until you can hold it. So I spent the next month holding it, quiet, one document at a time. Quiet suits me. Quiet is how bridges get built and how they get dropped. First, a surveyor, Anders Lindqvist out of Cedarton, licensed 41 years, a serious man with a boat full of gear that pinged all day like a submarine movie. He shot my corners off the original iron pins and ran the 1946 calls. Then he mapped the bottom of the lake in a grid. It took him 2 days. On the second afternoon, he waded ashore and pulled off his cap. Your grandfather hired good help, he said. I found 3 of his 4 corner pins before supper on the first day. Where's the 4th? I asked. Under their fuel dock, he said. That one made my week. The map he stamped shows my boundary as a clean green line running 300 feet out into open water. Inside that line sit 34 red rectangles. The nearest dock stood 40 feet inside my land. The farthest one stood 210 feet inside it. Not one piling missed. I filed that survey at the courthouse. Same counter, same Marjorie. She stamped it herself and patted the book like a good dog. Filing that map cost me $14. Best $14 I ever spent. Second, the assessor's office, 1 floor down. A certified statement for parcel 14-72. 11 acres, taxed and paid in full, every single year since 1946. You can argue with a neighbor. It's a lot harder to argue with 80 years of your own county's tax bills. The clerk down there told me her office doesn't get many happy customers. She asked if she could tell the story at Thanksgiving. I told her to wait for the ending. Third, a lawyer, and not a local one. Diane Okafor, title attorney, 2 counties over in Fenton. No clients on Kettle Lake and no friends on that board. Her office smells like copier toner, and she talks like a surgeon going down a chart. This is the cleanest lakebed title I've seen in 20 years, she said. Private dam, a private pond, in the eyes of the law, not navigable. The public trust rules for big waters don't touch it. The bed belongs to whoever holds the underlying deeds, and you hold yours. They'll say they've used the waterfront for 30 years, I said. Doesn't matter. A use has to run 20 years to ripen into a right, open and hostile the whole time. Those docks are 8 months old. She capped her pen. Legally speaking, Mr. Brenner, they built a garage in your yard, 34 garages. So what's the move? I asked. Notice first, she said. The association and every slip owner, individually, by name, certified mail, 30 days to remove. Then, if they sit on their hands, we sue for trespass and ejectment. The court makes the removal their bill, not yours. And the dock they chipped? I asked. That, she said, is called destruction of another man's property. We'll be discussing it with them at length. I liked her fine. She billed by the hour and talked like every word cost her the same. That Friday afternoon, I stood at the counter of the Marion post office with a cardboard box of envelopes. 35 of them, each one certified. Each one carried a copy of the deed, a copy of the easement, and Lindqvist's map with the red rectangles. One for the association. One for every family that had paid $12,000 for a piece of my farm. The clerk ran the stickers through the machine one at a time. Beep after beep after beep. I signed the last receipt as the sun came through the front glass. The postage came to $280 and change. I paid cash. Then I sat in the truck a while with the receipts on the bench seat. I thought about a gray morning, a wood chipper, and a small wave, fingers only. 34 docks, 34 trespassers. And in the morning, the mailman would tell every one of them. The notices landed on a Saturday. By 10 in the morning, my phone was ringing like a fire bell. I let most of it go to the machine. By supper, there were 19 messages. Some were angry at me. More were scared. One voice I didn't know said he'd put his wife's inheritance into slip 22, and he just kept saying, "Is this true? Is this true?" I didn't enjoy that. Those folks weren't my enemy, they were her customers. I wrote every caller's name in the green ledger before I ate. I called the slip 22 man back. Roger was his name. "I'm not after your money, Roger," I said. "I'm after my land. Your fight's with the person who sold you mine." He was quiet a bit. "She sat at my kitchen table," he said. "She brought a folder with a gold seal on it." Sunday afternoon, Curtis Boyd's gray Silverado came up my driveway through a light drizzle. He stood on my porch holding his envelope like it might go off. "Is this real, Walt?" he asked. "Every page of it." "This map, this green line." He unfolded Lindqvist's survey against my porch post. "My slips inside your line, they all are, Curtis, 40 feet at the nearest, 210 at the farthest." She took my $12,000. He looked out at the piling stubs where my dock used to be. I watched 20 years of Navy come up in his face. She stood in that clubhouse and sold me another man's ground. You'll get your chance to ask her about it, I said. Wednesday, the association answered. Cream letterhead, gold seal, 1 paragraph. The association considers these claims baseless and will vigorously defend its community amenities. Members are advised not to engage with Mr. Brenner or his representatives. I sent Diane a photo of it. She called back inside the hour, and she made a small sound like a chef finding a hair in somebody else's soup. Good, she said. Baseless is a word people eat later. We file this week. And Diane, the dock they chipped, stays in the case. Front and center, she said. Juries hate a wood chipper. She filed in Perry County Circuit Court. Trespass, ejectment, slander of title, the association, and every board member by name. And then the members themselves forced the thing I'd been waiting for. 91 signatures demanded an emergency meeting. The board set it for the first Tuesday of September, 7 in the evening at the clubhouse. That room was packed past what the fire marshal would have liked. Folding chairs gone before the doors finished swinging. People standing 3 deep along the walls. The air conditioner rattled away over the smell of coffee and the hairspray. Ray Delgado leaned on the back wall in uniform, arms crossed. Near him stood a man in a gray suit nobody recognized, holding a leather satchel. Patricia sat at the head table in the navy blazer. Gordon sat beside her behind his binders. Bryce worked the door with his phone already up. I didn't speak first. Diane did. She'd asked for the floor and gotten it, because 34 families in that room wanted answers more than Patricia wanted to gavel. Diane set up a projector. The first slide was Lindqvist's survey, big as a bedsheet on the clubhouse wall. The green line of my boundary, 300 feet out into the lake, 34 red rectangles inside it, and across the middle, in plain block letters, Brenner parcel, private property since 1946. The room went dead quiet. Patricia's hand came up to her pearls. Her smile was still on. Then it stopped halfway, like a garage door hitting something. Next to her, Gordon slid his treasurer's binder off the table and onto his lap. Slow. The way a man moves when he's decided he was never really there. This is, per the bylaws, Patricia said. The waterfront amenities are community property, and this presentation is. Your bylaws govern your land, Mrs. Caldwell Maine, Diane said. This map shows where your land ends. Would you like the laser pointer? Somebody in the back laughed once, sharp, and choked it off. Curtis stood up at the front. He didn't wait to be recognized. Did you know it was his lakebed when you took my $12,000? Curtis asked. The board relied on established community understanding, Patricia said. I want the record to show the treasurer advised a title search, Gordon said, quiet, into a microphone that happened to be switched on. The room came apart after that. Patricia gavelled until the head flew off the gavel, which is true. I watched it skitter under the refreshment table. When it got quiet enough, she looked straight past her own members, straight at me. Her voice cracked in the middle of it. You sat in these meetings for a year and said nothing? She asked. I stood up. I put my thumb on the brass cleat in my pocket, and I gave it a couple of seconds, same as always. I said it once, you gavelled me down. After that, I let the paper talk. The man in the gray suit came up the center aisle. He opened his satchel and held out the first of 35 envelopes. Patricia Caldwell Maine, he said, you've been served. For the first time all year, Bryce lowered his phone. Ray never moved off the back wall the whole night. On my way out, he tipped his hat 1 inch. Paper first, he said. 3 weeks later, Judge Wheeler heard the motion at the Perry County Courthouse, 2nd floor, in a room that smells like radiator paint. The association's lawyer talked for the better part of an hour about community expectations. He called my deed ancient history. He called the survey a technicality. He never once called it wrong. The judge asked him one question. Does your recorded plat include the lakebed, yes or no? It took the man a long while to say no. After that, it was arithmetic. Summary judgment for Brenner. Every encroaching structure removed at the defendant's cost. Plus $41,000 for a hand-milled cedar dock the appraiser called irreplaceable heritage timber. The judge gave them 45 days to remove every dock. On day 46, I made a phone call I'd been waiting 11 months to make, to a man with a barge crane. Verna Ostrander runs marine salvage out of Cedarton. He brought the barge in at 10 to 7 on a cold gray morning with the first hard frost on the grass. Verna's a big quiet man who moves like he's underwater himself. His crew tied off 60 feet from where my grandfather's dock used to stand. The diesel warmed up while I walked him the shoreline with 2 coffees. Which one first? Verna asked. Number 1, I said. We'll take them in order. They numbered them for me. Whole day's work, he said, maybe into the evening. I've got nowhere to be, I said. I've been waiting 11 months. Vern nodded like that was a normal thing to hear. Then, let's not make it 12, he said. The first dock came out of Kettle Lake at 7:30. Straps under the frame, a little shutter, and then up. Whole. Water poured off it, and the red signal flag snapped on the boom. Vern's crew swung it ashore and set it down in the association parking lot. The boards hit the pavement with a hollow boom I felt through my boots. By 9:30, there were 11 of them stacked up, the most expensive firewood in Perry County. The white Lexus showed up while Dock 12 was in the air. You already know that part. Now, I'll tell you what the paper said. Ray unfolded the blue-backed order and spoke every word of it to her, right there on the gravel, loud enough for the whole shoreline. The court authorizes the plaintiff to remove all encroaching structures at defendant's expense. Any interference with said removal shall be treated as contempt of court. He folded it back up. Ma'am, the only person I can arrest this morning is somebody who interferes. Please don't make my morning complicated. You're enjoying this, she said. I'm working, ma'am, Ray said. That was the last thing she said out loud. She stood at the waterline in her navy blazer with her hand over her mouth. She watched Dock 12 swing past her, dripping. She didn't move from that spot for an hour. Slip owners drifted down through the morning and stood along the shore in little quiet groups. Nobody heckled me. A few of them nodded. Around noon, Marjorie and her husband Earl showed up with a thermos and stood with me like it was a parade. You want coffee, or you want to just stand there being right? Marjorie asked. Both, I said. Earl wants to know what happens to all that lumber, she said. Not my lumber, not my problem, I said. First time in a year, I get to say that. Then Curtis Boyd walked over in work gloves. He helped Verney's groundman guide Dock 9, his own dock, down onto the stack. Figured I'd carry my own mistake, Curtis said. It wasn't your mistake, Curtis, I said. You just paid for it. What happens to us now? Curtis asked. The 34. That's between you and her, but if I were you, I'd get everybody in one room, all of them, one lawyer. He did exactly that. You'll hear how it went. Dock 34 came out at 6:15, with the sun going down orange behind the pines. The whole lake sat flat and empty in mine. Vern shut the crane down. The quiet after was a thing you could stand in. He shook my hand at the ramp. Cleanest job I've had all year, he said. Usually somebody cries at me. Days young, I said. But nobody did. I sent the association my invoice by certified mail the next morning. $86,400, secured by a lien on the clubhouse. Diane's idea. Diane has good ideas. The certified card came back signed in Patricia's own hand. I framed nothing. I filed it. Now, you'll want to know how it all landed. So, I'll tell you the way the county told it, one name at a time. Patricia Caldwell, Maine. 34 families sued her for fraud. The court gave them $408,000 back, plus interest, with her name on the judgment right next to the association's. The state pulled her real estate license for selling interests in land without title. She sold her 3 flip houses to cover it. Then she sold the big Lakeview house too. Dale filed for divorce along the way to protect what was left. It didn't work. Dale, Maine. The state fined his company $148,000 for 34 unpermitted structures in a regulated waterway. His contractor license got suspended for 3 years. Maine Marine folded by spring. The bank auctioned his equipment, and Verna bought the barge. So the crane that pulled those docks out was the very same one that drove the pilings in. I didn't plan that. Some things the lake just gives you. Gordon Pruitt. Discovery found the slip money parked in the reserve fund under one word: landscaping. He pled to a felony count of misappropriating association funds. 5 years probation, full restitution, and a garnish on that banker's pension of his. The relevant line item, as it turned out: Bryce Caldwell. The trail camera card came out of my drawer and went to the county attorney. Criminal mischief, convicted. 200 hours of community service, and the court, bless it, assigned him litter duty at the public boat ramp. His Marina Operations Director title outlived the Marina by exactly 1 day, and the association itself. The special assessment to cover my invoice and the judgments broke it. The members voted to dissolve, 118-9. The clubhouse got sold to satisfy my lien. In its place, I filed 1 page at Marjorie's counter. Any neighbor in good standing with me can moor a boat on my water. Free, revocable, any time. 14 families have signed it. Curtis was first. His pontoon sits off my shore now, and he waves every time he passes. The whole arm, not just the fingers. This spring, I built the dock back. New cedar, same 80 feet, same footprint off the old stubs. And here's the part I didn't expect. Earl was helping me clear the bank, and down in the reeds he found 1 whole board. An original, one that had bounced clear of the chipper and floated home. We sanded it and set it at the very end of the dock, right where Ellen's roses lean out over the water. That's where I drink my coffee now, while the loons carry on at dusk. Grandpa was right about the taxes. 11 acres. And now everybody on Kettle Lake can count them.